The test I found that tested players' knowledge of the game of volleyball was a multiple-choice test that consisted of technique, tactics, rules, and safety questions. This test was developed by 4 national-level coaches who had 25 years of experience in volleyball. They came up with 8 technique questions, 5 tactic questions, and 7 rule questions. Before having athletes take this test, they reviewed it to make sure it was valid and reliable. They asked 12 students who had already taken a volleyball course to revise it as well. These students indicated that the questions were clear enough to understand. The final test consisted of 20 multiple questions on technique, tactic, rules, and safety questions. The subjects were given 30 minutes to complete the knowledge test. I chose this test because this test was developed by 4 national level coaches who had 25 years of experience in volleyball. In order to establish validity, the questions were provided to 6 PE teachers who had at least 10 years or more experience in teaching volleyball either at high school or a middle school level.
For the volleyball skill performance section of our test battery, we decided to use the techniques of serving, forearm passing, setting or fingertip passing, and spiking. For serving, the drill we decided to use was the zone accuracy serving drill. This drill had a very high retest reliability coefficient of about 0.8, and it was very commonly found in many different volleyball programs, including the El Paso High School volleyball program here in El Paso, the Franklin High School volleyball program also here in El Paso, and the North Carolina State University volleyball program, as well as many others. In setup for this drill, cones are used on one side of the court to create different zones. Each zone will be worth a point depending on their difficulty to serve to. For example, the hardest zones to serve to will be worth 5 points, the next hardest zones will be worth 4, then 3, then 2, and the easy zones to serve to will be worth 1 point. Each athlete will be given 10 overhand float serve attempts to try to get as many points as possible. Some things to look for as an evaluator for this drill should be that the ball passes as close to the net as possible without touching the net during each player's serve. They try to aim for about around 0.8 meters above the net. Another thing to note will be the player's form. A couple tips in analyzing the form of the players include making sure that they don't have any extra movement in their serving form, that they toss the ball in front of their hitting shoulder, that they contact the middle of the ball with the middle of their hand, and that they are proved to be consistent at serving into different zones and score high while maintaining a good form. Is going to be a forearm passing drill that was made very popular by the current Purdue University women's volleyball head coach David Shondel. It is used in his program as well as many other different programs today, collegiate, high school levels, many different levels. It's a very good drill because it emulates a game situation very well. For this drill, you will need one athlete on the opposite side of the court to serve the ball over to the person who will be performing the forearm pass. You will have this athlete serve the ball, and the player you will be testing has to react to the serve and accurately perform a forearm pass to a zone set up just below the net. The purpose of this zone is to emulate a game situation because in this game setting, this is where the setter will be present in play. The athlete will be judged based on their forearm pass form as well as their accuracy. They can accumulate points by both having good form and accurately hitting the zone provided. They will have 10 attempts to accurately complete the forearm pass with good form. Each completed forearm pass with good form will be worth 2 points. If one of the components are missing, so say for example, they had good form but they didn't accurately complete the pass, or they completed the pass but they didn't have the best form, a point will be deducted. And that attempt will be worth 1 point. And if both components would be missing, the attempt will be worth 0 points. A couple key points for evaluators to look for always include good form and the player's overall reaction time and decision making. The form for the forearm pass can be evaluated by ensuring that the athletes have proper hand position while keeping their arms straight on contact, as well as having little arm swing when they contact the ball and having when they contact the ball on their lower forearms and keeping their body under the ball. Have the players focus on keeping their hips up so they can remain mobile during the drill and better react to the serve. The next drill used is going to be a fingertip passing, also known as a setting drill. This drill is very common in many of the different volleyball programs that we listed, and it is very common amongst many different ages and skill levels. It has a very high test-retest reliability coefficient of around 0.9, as it is extremely simple, but a good thing about this drill is the difficulty can be adjusted and it can be used to emulate a game setting. The drill begins with the player tossing a ball toward the setter or the athlete you will be testing about a step in front of them. The setter will then pass the ball back to the person who tossed the ball using their fingertips. The ball should reach a decent height and be essentially perfect for a spike. Although it is a very simple test, it was selected because of this spiking setup variation of the drill. In this variation, the tosser tosses the ball to the setter, who will then set for the person that just tossed the ball so they can spike it, and essentially a give and go. Athletes will be judged based on their overall setting accuracy. The drill will follow similar scoring to the previous forearm pass drill that we just discussed on the 2, 1, or 0 scale, depending on the components present during each attempt. Each athlete will have 10 attempts to achieve the highest score possible. A couple key things to note when evaluating for this test: it is important to note that the athlete's form, as well as the accuracy, height, and overall placement of the fingertip pass. A couple of things to note in regards to the athlete's form include making sure the athletes have good hand positioning and use their fingers and not the palms of their hands. It's also important to make sure that the body gets they get their whole body underneath the ball with their legs and arms fully extended when contact is made. The final skill performance drill selected in this test battery will be a simple spiking drill. This drill is, as the previous three is another very, very common drill found in many different volleyball programs. This drill involves one player tossing the ball up for the athlete to spike it. The athlete will be assessed on many different things, including spike power, form, and the general accuracy of the spike. Each spike that hits inbounds will be worth 1 point. Spikes hit in more difficult areas, such as back corners or zones along the lines, will be worth 2 points. Players can also score an additional point for having good form throughout their spike. A few key components for evaluators to look for include the athlete's jump height and spike power, that the athlete is contacting the ball with the middle of their palm in the middle of the ball, that the athlete's approach and follow through is correct and consistent. Although this drill is simple, it is proven to be very effective in selecting very good spikers, as well as improving players' spike placement and overall spike power.
The Sports Anxiety Scale is a 15-item questionnaire that assesses the competitive trait anxiety experienced before and after competition. The instrument seems suitable not only for basic research on the cognitive and somatic aspects of anxiety, but also for assessing efficacy of interventions designed to reduce anxiety. The Sports Anxiety Scale 2 uses a 4-point Likert scale for the responses ranging from 1, not at all, to 4, very much. The scale measures responses for 3 factors: somatic anxiety, worry, and concentration disruption. The athlete must complete the 15 questions with no time limit for completion. The scale's Cronbach's alpha was a measure of internal consistency, and it had a value of 0.91, which indicated that it's the best test that can be used. The test is relevant to athletes' performance under pressure because we are able to predict anxiety at each subscale and how much power each subscale has on the athlete's total anxiety. The strongest predictive power was seen for the worry scale and the SAS-2 total score. The reliability and validity studies indicate that SAS-2 had good psychometric properties. The original SAS scale had studies that suggested it had major measurement shortcomings. The SAS-2 had a high 0.90 correlation with the original SAS scale, but the SAS-2 was a more valid measure of the concentration disruption scale and therefore was a more appropriate test for anxiety under pressure. Scoring key is divided into 3 factors. Questions 2, 6, 10, 12, and 14 are graded for the somatic factor. Questions 3, 5, 8, 9, 11 for the worry factor. And questions 1, 4, 7, 13, 15 for concentration disruption. This SAS-2 scale is the best test for this component of our battery because it is said to be useful as an outcome measure in research designed to evaluate anxiety reduction interventions in sport.